So I play a bit with basically the scale of the textures just to give a better feeling for the scene. And if you pay attention here, most of this grass is going to be covered with vegetation, so I'm not worried with that. But the cliffs now have a bigger scale, so I like the way it's looking. The water here, you can see the transparency of the water, some rocks around the edges of the cliff, and the transparency there. We can still play a bit more at the end. It's maybe true translucent at this point, but still I like. About the trees itself, too hard to tell because it's just have these trees here. It's a bit odd. So when we start sketching more trees, and we'll have like this palm trees standing out, and we'll have different colors, I think they're going to look really nice. The texture of the water and the amount of details that we have, it's amazing. And we have like these patches of wind, and these patches of more like flat surface, and we can all control that. Later on in the end, I'm going to play more with the ocean. So this was a quick one. The other thing that I created, if you see the terrain, I just brought in the texture, the displacement, and did the same thing. I just brought the same displacement from the, this one is from the grass, this one is from the cliffs, and this one is from the sand. And then I use a displacement in each of these, and then a displacement blender. That's the same idea of the material blender. So I use the same maps that we created to define the cliffs, the sand, and everything else, to be as the base input and the displacement weight. So just give a bit displace and break a bit how the light reacts, like the edges a bit. It's just like a tiny bit. Because of the distance we don't notice too much, but just give a more realistic way for the light to bend. So now I'm going to do the time lapse of the scattering on this, and then as every time we have something new or different that I'm doing, I come back and explain what I'm doing. So what I'm doing here, as you understand, so let me, while it's rendering, I can't access this time. But basically, what we're trying to achieve here is to create this chain where you think ahead which trees you want to have the least, like more spread around, and then you can use these points to scatter points around them. So that's a good way. So from one mask that I defined like areas that are kind of flat, for example, let me just see. So from 0 totally flat to 49 degrees with a kind of like the good thing of using this ramp here is that you can have a fade out to have less scatter points on the edges of this selection. And also I use the height so I could just scatter above 1 meter, so we don't have on the beach itself and under the water, and also all the way to 82, that's the maximum height of this terrain. And then the thing is that, like, remember I have this mask, that this was a draw mask around the area of the rice fields, so we just scattering and multiplying this mask so with that one, so we don't have anything running around those edges, around these areas. So let's see. Yeah, well, we have like this this DP was this last one that I placed. So I from this one, instead of putting along around that one, I also want them to be very scarce, so I'm using like a very wide outer radius, so it's 6 meters at least between each instance, and having a coverage of 0.08, so very low, just to have like this bright spot of different colors around. And the banyan is the big tree, the big one here. I put this one because I thought like all this, the color was kind of like the same. This is a bit going more towards bluish, it's still green but more bluish. This is more towards yellow, but still very monochromatic, so I wanted to have like this kind of yellow spots around the terrain, but very few, just a tiny bit. So yeah, that's looking great. And this one, the same thing. What I'm doing here, here I'm keep incoming the scatter point, and in this one no. So what I want to do is to have the same thing. I'm using the banyan to place scatter acacias around. So it's looking great. There's a few areas where we can put more trees, like this edge here. We might benefit from having trees around this area now, because it's going to hide our rice field. So I'd like to have some more around this maybe, and or maybe we can have just like a smaller bushes and trees that I'm going to use from Megascans. So we're also going to have a lot of bushes around this area, and some specifically around this transition from the beach to the top part. So yeah, it's looking nice, and I'm going to keep scattering. So see you in the next one.